Oh, maybe I better put my glasses on so I can see y'all. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay. So y'all, do you have spring fever? I'm really feeling it. I know we still have a week or so, like a week and a half left in February, but I'm ready. I'm ready for March. I'm ready for a little bit of spring weather, and these last few days here where I live have been so rainy. And so then I was thinking, what better way to spend a rainy day than to do a little early spring crafting? Hello, my darling friends. Welcome back to my channel. I am looking forward to spending some time together today. We are going to have a good time. We are going to spend some time crafting. So I hope y'all enjoy this. Come along with me as we work on some early spring crafting. And if you are new to my channel or visiting for the first time, welcome. It's very nice to meet you. I hope you enjoy your visit today. If you are returning, welcome back. It's good to see you again. Okay, so if y'all are like me, you are experiencing a little bit of spring fever. So I thought it would be fun to work on some really cool early spring decor pieces today. We're going to create some really fun art. Don't get scared. Every time I say art, I feel like people just want to turn and run. But we're working on some very doable, approachable, easy art pieces today that anyone can do, and I know you can too. So our very first piece that we're going to work on today is going to be a really cool, we're going to create some fun birds and just nest or tuck them in a really cute little bird nest. So y'all, let's go get started on our very first project. I am so excited about this project, y'all. I have been super into resin and molds lately, so this is going to be a fun one. We are going to create our own little ceramic. They're going to be resin, but we're going to call them ceramic birds. So we're going to need some casting resin, some measuring cups, some stirring spoons, and of course the mold. And I will have this mold listed in the description box for y'all if you want to recreate these darling little birds. So we're going to go ahead and start by mixing our two parts. This resin is a quick set resin, and it comes in two parts. You have part A, part B, and we are going to need 60 milliliters of resin to fill this specific mold. So I'm going to pour 30 milliliters of part A, and then we will fill 30 milliliters of part B. We will stir it really well. When you first mix them together, they're going to be a little foggy. You're going to want to stir these really well until it sort of becomes clear, and that's when you know it's ready to pour. If y'all ever get confused on the mixology for this particular resin kit, it is literally just a 1-to-1 ratio. So for example, the mold that we're using today it holds 60 milliliters. So we're going to do 30 milliliters of part A, 30 milliliters of part B. We have now mixed it thoroughly and it is ready to pour into the mold. Okay, y'all, so when doing this part, you do want to mix, or not mix, pour. We've already mixed, but you do want to pour very slowly. Two reasons: if you pour slowly, you don't run the risk of overflowing, and pouring slowly also eliminates bubbles. But because this is a 3D mold, I am going to come in and sort of tap the mold all the way around to help eliminate some bubbles that we may get in our finished product. This is after 15 minutes, y'all. This stuff sets up so fast and I love it. And you know it's completely set up when it turns from clear to opaque white. And it was a little fiddly getting it out of the mold, but not too much. You can kind of see here, I popped it out pretty easily.
It did kind of make me giggle a little because it was almost like watching an egg or a bird hatch from an egg. All right, so now we have our cute little bird, and oh my gosh, y'all. This just makes me feel giddy. I love this. I love being able to pour some resin in a mold and then just like that, get a little bird that we're going to kind of turn into a bird that looks very ceramic. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat that entire process to create a second bird. And here we are demolding the second one. This one, because it went a little bit faster than the first one because I had a little more practice. So something to think about when you are using this particular resin, it is ready to demold after about 10 to 15 minutes. However, it does take about 12 hours for it to completely and fully set. So when you first demold them, parts of your mold, like the tail on this particular bird, because it's a little thinner, was a little soft. But after 12 hours, it completely set and no worries. So now we are ready to start painting. And I am just going to come in and do a base coat on these. And I am using some slate gray to paint just a base coat all over this. This particular resin is paintable and it paints very, very well. I will have all of the colors that I used to create this cute little bird listed in the description box for y'all. Okay, so now we have the base coat, that gray base coat down on each of the birds. And while that base coat is just a little bit wet, not super wet, but a little bit wet, I come in with some green and gently brush it on to just kind of blend that green into the gray a little bit. Okay, y'all, so we have let those first two coats dry. Our initial gray and our green blend have dried. And so now what I'm going to do is start coming in with a whole lot of layers. The look that I'm going for here is sort of an aged patinaed look. So to achieve that, we definitely need to work in lots and lots of layers. Some of the layers I do let fully dry, and some of them we work a little bit, like wet on wet, so to speak, like you would like if you were watercoloring, for example. So here I've come in and layered on a little bit of dark green, and then I came in with a little chocolate color while that dark green was still slightly wet. And I am using a dry brush here. So I dab my brush into the paint, wipe it off on the paper towel, and then use that to just kind of blend the colors together. And I continue doing this, layering on, and you can kind of see the difference here. We've got a lot of depth and a lot of dimension happening so far, but I want to keep adding to this. So now I'm coming in with a little bit of vintage blue because you want those undertones of blue on this, and we want a little bit of undertones of pinks and greens on our cute little bird here. So again, I just keep layering on, and making sure I'm dry brushing and blending everything really well. So after I've let all those first initial coats dry, I decided we needed a little more pop of color. So I came in with kind of a really light celery green here, and I'm going over everything with that. And then again, I will come on top of that and do a little bit more layering. Here we have our birds pretty well finished, and I'm really loving how these turned out. They definitely have that very aged patina look to them. So now it's time to create some cute little nests for them. So I'm going to start by using some candlesticks, this cute little bowl that I found at Hobby Lobby that kind of looks like a bird's nest in and of itself. And then I did find these really cute grapevine bird's nests that were already pre-formed. I found these at Hobby Lobby as well, and we're going to use some of this fun moss and a little bit of florals. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just flip this one candlestick upside down. I want a little bit of height between these two because these candlesticks were the same height. So to create a variation in heights, I add the bowl to the top of one of them, put in the nest, And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same to the shorter one, add the nest, and then to fill the nest, I will add in a little bit of moss. Then we can set the bird in there, kind of see what things are looking like. And then if we need a little bit more, we can come in with some florals. At this point, I feel like our nests are looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and tuck our birds in and just see how they set in here and how they are looking. And so far, I am loving the way this looks. I do feel like, though, we need to add just a pop of floral to this. I don't know if birds actually use flowers to build their nests, but I kind of like the look. So I'm just going to take some of this baby's breath and cut a few sprigs off and tuck it just here and there into the nests. All right, y'all, I think that is going to finish off our cute little birds. I love the way they turned out, and it's going to be fun to style them with all the pieces that we create today.
This year I decided to change up the theme for my spring decor a little bit. Rather than going with the traditional bunnies that we all love and adore, I thought it would be kind of fun to incorporate more birds and whatnot into my spring decor, birds and florals and just more of the things that you see in nature during the springtime. So this next piece is going to be a really fun one. It's different, it's unique, but it's very easy, very approachable, very doable, and I think you guys are going to love it. So let's go get started on project number 2.
All right, y'all, for this project, we are going to have some fun. So we will need a canvas. For this one, I'm using a 16 by 14 or 14 by 16 canvas. You will also need a stencil and some transfer tape. And I will provide the pattern for this stencil in the description box for y'all. And then we are going to have some fun with Crackle Medium. I don't know if y'all have ever used Crackle Medium, but this stuff is a lot of fun. So we're going to play with that a little bit. And then you will need a variety of paint colors for this project. And I will have all of the colors that I used for this piece listed in the description box for y'all. So to get started, we are first going to paint our entire canvas. And I am using Country Twill, Folk Art Country Twill to paint the canvas, and I do paint the entire surface, the fronts and the sides. For this next step, we are going to have a little bit of fun and just play around with some artistic style. And this is where one of those places where you just get to do you. We're going to use several colors, and what we're going to do here is create this really fun backdrop, so to speak. So we're going to create this canvas to look very similar to an antique photo or an antique piece of wallpaper. That might be the better way to say this. So the first thing I'm going to do is water down my paint. So I start with my first color and I water it down a little bit because I want this to have a little bit of that watercolor effect. And all I'm going to do here is just start drawing some leaves, and I'm just freehanding these. This is just one of those places where you can just have a ton of fun with this and just do you and get as creative as you want with this step. are not comfortable freehanding all of your leaves or flowers or whatever it is you choose for your background, you could use stencils to do this step as well. That would be just as easy and just as much fun. So here I'm just going to continue drawing on a whole bunch of my leaves or painting on a whole bunch of my leaves, and then I will come back in after I get my initial layer. I am leaving a little bit of a blank space in the center because that's where we're going to put a bird in a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue layering in some flowers. And then I will come in with a little bit of a darker color and create a second layer of leaves here. And I'm also watering down this color. I'm going to water down all of my paints for this step because I'm trying to achieve a little bit of that watercolor effect. So I'm going to just kind of start overlaying. So I'm going to not completely overlay each of the initial leaves that I drew here, but just a little bit. So you can kind of see what I mean. I'm just sort of overlaying them off to the edge a little bit to create sort of a shadow, I guess you could say, with that darker green. Once I feel good about the initial leaves that I have down, I'm going to come in and just start adding in some little, I don't know what you want to call these, like just little swishy marks. And I'm just going to do that to fill this space in because I kind of want a nice filled in space behind our bird that we're going to create in just a little bit. And I also come in with the end of my paintbrush and create a whole bunch of dots to kind of resemble like berries or just a little bit of filler. This is actually really just adding some filler into my background. Now that we have the background in place and completed, I'm happy with it. I love the way it's looking. We're going to start aging this piece. So the first thing that I'm going to do to give this a little aging is come back in with our initial color. This is the color that I first laid on the canvas, that country twill. But this time I'm watering it down a lot because we just want to create like a wash here. And then I'm going to just brush that wash over the top of our entire canvas. And what this is going to do is just sort of make our background look a little dimensional. It's going to kind of put it in the background a little bit more and give it that faded look. So I've washed most of this canvas, but I did want to show you here the difference between the washed side and the side that hasn't been washed. And you can see the difference, how it just gives it that subtle look. It kind of just really puts it in the background and makes it look more watercolory. So this next step is where we're going to start bringing in some of the aging, and I am just using some antiquing wax to do this and a good stippling brush. I'm going to dip my brush into the antiquing wax and then dab a whole bunch of it off onto my paper towel because you really just want to do a dry brushing here. But I am going to go over the entire canvas with this, but I'm going to do it very light. I'm using a very light hand here, a very gentle hand here. And if you get some places that are a little bit darker than you want them to be, just come back in with a little bit of that wash and cover it up, and then use your dry brush to do some blending. And then to give this piece a little extra aging, I'm going to use a little darker antiquing wax on my brush and brush all of the edges. And to do this, I kind of start from the inside of my canvas and work outward, and then I come back in and work from the outside of my canvas and work inward to just give us some of those really fun brush strokes. Okay, so now we can go ahead and lay down our stencil. So I'm just going to place the stencil on my canvas here, do my best to get it centered and positioned the way that I want it. Then I had to come in with, I got it laid down, but because, it's canvas that we're working with and it's a little bit flimsy, I put a book behind it to just give it a little extra surface to really make sure that my stencil is really well adhered to the canvas. Once we get our stencil adhered to the canvas, we can go ahead and remove our carrier paper. This is like the transfer tape. And I do this slowly. You want to make sure you do this slowly because some of my vinyl did try to come up with the carrier paper. And then I just take my finger and brush all around the outside of our stencil to make sure it's really well adhered, because you don't want to get any bleed when you do this. Now we're going to go ahead and stencil this on, and I am using a stenciling brush with some black chalk paint and a pouncy motion. So when you are using a stencil, the best way to get a good coverage without bleed is to use a pouncy motion. If you do a brush, you run the risk of getting the paint up underneath your stencil, and then you might get some bleed through. Okay, so now we have let our stencil coat, our first initial stencil coat, completely dry. So now we can come in and have some fun with this crackle medium. So I'm going to go ahead and lay a really liberal coat of this down because I want really large cracks in our paint. And then I will come in and just kind of smooth it out with my brush. You do want to use a flat brush, a soft flat brush to do this, and kind of work in one fluid motion as you're doing this. And then we will let that crackle medium dry for about 2 hours. So here I've let it dry, and I did just a little bit of a test swatch, and it's looking really good. So now we can go ahead and come in with our top coat. So when working with crackle medium, you want your undercoat to be darker than your top coat so that you get that nice contrast, because this is going to create cracks in the paint, and you want those cracks to have a darker color. So now I'm laying down the top coat of this, and you do want to make sure that you don't do back and forth motions. You just want to go one stroke, one direction as you're laying this down, and you want to use a pretty thick coat of paint to do this. Once you have your top coat on, I suggest letting it dry pretty good before you try to remove the stencil. I was impatient and started lifting my stencil way too soon, and I did have a little bit of trouble. It worked out okay in the end, but I do recommend letting your paint dry completely before removing the stencil. And another trick that I did was I removed my stencil in small pieces. So I did kind of use some scissors to cut some of the pieces to just give me some small pieces to remove at a time. I do think the most satisfying part of this project is removing the stencil. This was a fun part for me. It was very satisfying. Once I got the stencil removed, I was so happy with the results. The only thing I wish I would have done differently is put antiquing wax for my first base coat rather than the black.
For our very last piece today, we are going to create another type of canvas art piece, but this one is going to be using some very unique home decor supplies or home decorating supplies. So I'm excited to get started on this one. Let's go.
For this project, we are going to need a large canvas. I am using a 20 by 30 canvas here and some wallpaper. This wallpaper that I am using has it's like pre-glued. So all we have to do is wet it down. And we are going to, and this is also a paintable wallpaper. So all we are going to do here is cover our canvas with this really cool patterned wallpaper. It's got a really beautiful like paisley type pattern on it. It's very cottage core. So I just came in with my spray bottle. I don't know if this was the right way to do this, but it was the easiest way for me. And I just really saturated this entire thing with water, made sure the glue was very activated, and then I fold it together in and of itself because that kind of also helps with the activation process. And then I just simply laid it over the top of my canvas. And when I did this part, I wanted to make sure that I had enough wallpaper to wrap my canvas over the edges as well. So when you are cutting your canvas, you want to keep that in mind, because I don't want to have weird raw edges on the canvas. I want my canvas to look the same as the rest of the art piece. I hope that makes sense. I just want my edges to look exactly the same. So I did cut this so that it would completely wrap around the canvas on all four sides. Because of the size of the wallpaper, I did have to cut 2 pieces to fully cover my canvas. And I did come in with my brayer to just smooth this down and make sure I got a really good adhesion to the canvas, to make sure my wallpaper was going to adhere to the canvas really well. Then when it came to matching up my seams, I felt like I was struggling a little bit here. However, once the wallpaper dried and the glue dried and everything dried really well, the seam kind of disappeared, but then when I covered it with the paint, it disappeared a little more. Okay, y'all, so this is where we get to start having some fun. We are going to go ahead and paint this entire piece, and this is where you get to do you and just customize this to your taste and your style. So the look that I was going for here was a little bit of a gradient in color. So I'm just going to come in, spread a little bit of paint across this in a variety of different colors, and then I come in with a large soft brush and just start blending these colors out. As I was blending the colors, I was really liking how this was looking, but I really did not want a whole lot of that white to show through. So I did blend and then add a lot more paint so that I could get full coverage across this canvas. Now that I have the entire canvas covered in our base coats, I am loving the gradient here. I think it is really beautiful, but we need to make some of the texture in this wallpaper pop. So to do that, I'm going to come in with some white antiquing wax, and I'm mostly focusing on the really textured parts of the wallpaper when I apply my white antiquing wax to do this. I do cover most of the canvas doing this because it's mostly textured. But once I get the white antiquing wax down, I'm going to come in with some dark antiquing wax and really just hone in and focus on the super textured parts of this to make those textural parts pop. I am really loving how this piece is turning out, and I think it is going to make a beautiful backdrop for our vignette.
I love how all 3 of our pieces turned out today. These are going to be so fun to style. So y'all, that's what we're gonna go do next, because you know, anytime I create home decor pieces, my favorite part about the whole process is styling them. So we're going to head out into my sitting area and we're going to style these on the mantle. We're gonna just create a fun little spring vignette with these.
Let's keep the styling very simple here. We're just going to remove my winter decor pieces and then replace them with the new pieces that we created together today.
y'all think of how all of our pieces came together once we've got them styled? I am loving them. I am loving how it just adds such a refreshing touch of spring or splash of spring to this space. It definitely gives me those fun, spring, happy vibes. Alrighty, my dear friends, that is going to wrap up all of our projects for today. I really hope y'all enjoyed this and you enjoyed your time here today, and that I have somehow inspired you and given you some fresh new ideas for your spring decor. I am really looking forward to next week. We have got something very fun and exciting to share with y'all. So come back and see us again next week. Until then, y'all take care, and I will see you soon. Bye. Roll the camera. Wow, I look really good today, don't I? This is the rainy day look. Little splash, kinda definitely. Oh, yay. Wait, I'll think of something to say in a minute. Till then, we'll just stand here. We'll just stand here and think. Something will come to me eventually. Whew. And that's a wrap.